Well, we have in the studio a former Member of Parliament for Tema East, former Deputy Transport Minister, regular on the show, and we're at John Hughes' late father's funeral over the weekend. Titus Glover, how are you?
Was it not a holiday? It wasn't the weekend. It was the Farmer's Day.
Okay. Because it was Friday.
You thought it was a Saturday.
Charlie.
I know. I know.
How are you, sir?
I'm fine, my
Great,
brother.
great.
I'm good.
Also do have Mohammed Sukparu, Member of Parliament for Sisala West. Thank you for joining us this morning.
You're welcome.
Well, great.
Yeah.
How have you been?
Oh,
You've been okay?
Small.
Small, yeah?
Yeah, small.
You guys approved the budget. You were doing pam.
Can you give this to me? You have two?
No, please, you can take
2022. Yeah, you can
okay.
You can take it. No, I not the two. It's just a referral document.
Okay.
We
you are doing pam minority.
We didn't approve the budget.
Then what did you do?
What we did yesterday was he is a former member of parliament, and you know, a budget we have stages. This is the first stage. So what we did was the parliament, and you saw it outside. We rejected it, so we voted no. By the end of the day, Speaker said yes, have it. So
you're now going to the.
We are now going
sectorial.
Into the sectorial, yeah, the estimate, and so that is where the real job is. And so this is only a policy document presented to Parliament. So we debated the document, and I mean, we yes, but by the end of the day, the majority carried the vote the day, and so it's supposed that we approve the policy document. So
why were you making all the noise that
our noise? When you say we're making all the noise,
because you make a lot of noise, especially
and we are still making.
You blame the finance minister that he's taking a lot of loans over the years, but you also party to the approval processes of the appropriations.
Which appropriation?
Oh,
so the noise we are making the noise.
2022, didn't you?
We are speaking for you. We are speaking for you. Of course, 2022 we passed the budget, and you saw how we scrutinized the budget. At a point, we in opposition were seen as people who were anti-government. We didn't want the progress of this country. That was a picture. You understand? This is what we are saying. What we did yesterday, it was just a process. That's the first stage. We approved the policy document presented to Parliament. We are now going to go into the estimation sectorial. We'll look into the figures, right? And we have raised major issues concerning what this budget contained, which is the VAT, the 2%, 2.5% increment in the VAT. And we are saying that we are not going to approve that because you and I.
How are you going to end up not approving it?
We are not. He understands the system. That is what I'm saying.
You don't have the numbers, do you?
When we say we are not going to approve, when we get there, we will see whether we have the numbers or we do not have the numbers. We are going to ensure that that particular tax is being taken out. Because we are experiencing hardship in this country. This is not a time government should be imposing taxes.
No, we don't understand that. Yes. What are you going to do to make sure that it's not? Because you don't have the numbers. At the end of the day,
we don't have the numbers, and I'm telling you that we are going to ensure that that is going to reject it. Because Finance Committee would have to look at it and present their report. So it is not the entire House. As I sit here, I cannot speak for the entire, but it is the responsibility of the Finance Committee. And we have our members there. So at the committee level, a report...
Mr. Sukparu, let me ask you a question. Would it be responsible or irresponsible on the part of the minority side of the House to decide that the government estimates and the revenue projection that would ensure that we get out of this quagmire we find ourselves is not approved? Because over the last financial year, the government has accused the minority side of Parliament of being one of the main painstaking reasons why we're not able to meet our revenue projections.
That cannot be true.
With a delay in the approval of the election.
Are you therefore telling me, as Parliament, when document, for that matter, an important document like budget of this country, when it is presented to Parliament, we should just stamp it? Rubber stamp it and allow it to go, because we have an oversight responsibility to ensure that our national purse is being protected. And so you do not expect us that any figure, any amount, any proposal that is being presented to Parliament, we should just go ahead because we want to support government to progress. We should just go ahead and approve it.
So that's why I'm asking you this question. As part of the minority, Mr. Sukparu,
yes,
are you going to treat the concerns you have about the increase of VAT to 2.5 as the same way as you treated e-levy?
Of course, because we saw e-levy, just as e-levy, we saw it as a necessary tax, right? And we fought it. We ensured that at least there was, a reduction, right? First, they were proposing 1.75%, and later they brought it to 1.5 or so. So we fought it. You saw how we fought it. Even it was later somewhere March or April that we were able to even pass that particular tax, right? And so this particular tax, the increment of the VAT, the 2.5, we are going to ensure that that tax is being taken, and that will show that we have a responsible minority which is representing the people like you and I in this country. We cannot, like
Seriously,
I said,
we need that revenue.
We do not. This is not the time, my brother. Look, our current problem that we are facing as a country, it is not about revenue. It is about mismanagement. It is about reckless expenditure that this government has engaged. When you say like what? You can pick the Auditor General's report. Look at the loopholes. Look at the money that goes to individuals. What is this government doing about this? Right? We are talking about expenditure. I was just showing my brother here about office of the president. You cannot all the time be imposing taxes on the ordinary people when you yourself, you are living an extravagant kind of life, right? That's the kind of system we are experiencing. You come to tell us that there's no money, so the citizens must contribute for us as a country to move forward. Yet you, the leader, that you need to live an exemplary life. Let us see that you are ready to ensure that.
What exactly do you mean by that?
When
you didn't see the president through the finance minister with a recent announcement that they were going to be cut to, for example, meetings, if they were going to be held outside, are now going to be held in offices across various MDAs and MDs. They are going to reduce fuel coupons, if not in some areas, not give power at all. And the finance minister has said these appropriately are measures that are going to affect the bottom line.
Yes, and you see it as something that can really reduce our expenditure. Do you see this?
I'm asking you. You're a member of parliament.
And that is, of course.
And you are party to approval in the initial processes of the budget.
I am saying that this is insignificant. Look, this is the time for government. I thought, right, when the finance minister came to, or the president was going to address this nation to say that because of the current hardship, I am going to merge some of my ministries. For instance, we have Ministry of Railway, we have Ministry of Transport, his former ministries. We have the Ministry of Roads and Highways. This is the time for president to prove to the people of this country that indeed he's ready to share, right, the hardship with them. Merge them. It is not about how much do you spend when you organize meetings. How much is he spoke about the fact that this year there will not be hampers or whatever. How much do we even spend on those items? We are talking about real costs, not this kind of petty costs. This is insignificant. Merge your ministries. Go to the office of the president. I have the budget. I was just showing it to my brother. 2022, office of the president, government machinery. The staff strength, it was about 2,000. It has increased from 2,000 to 3,600. That is about more than 1,000 people. You are talking about freezing employment from January 2023 going. You are proposing to recruit in the office of the president. Do you understand? What kind of government is this? You are telling the ordinary person walking on the street that because of the current challenges and as part of IMF proposals being proposed to our country that before they can come to support us, you must do ABCD. And one is to ensure that public sector employment is frozen. That is what they are proposing to us. Yourself, myself, the ordinary person walking on the street, we are there to suffer. My big brother sitting here and his family and his party, for them, they can get employment. At least the office of the president is there. If there's something, to at least his son, his nephew, his niece, or any member of his party, he can just pick a phone call and call someone as the flasher, and the person will be employed. What do you mean by that? Do you think
you're also a member of parliament?
Yes, I am a member of parliament. And I'm saying that
made of you.
it is not same assumption. We are talking about reality here. We are talking about office of the government. And do you think
office of what?
Office of the president. I'm talking about office of the government machinery. That includes the office of the president, the vice president's office, other ministers of states, and all of that. And I'm saying that you and I know that these particular offices, they would not employ any ordinary Ghanaian apart from their party members. And that is what I'm telling you, that it means that for them, they are rest assured that the hardship, just as they are currently not experiencing it, they will ensure that they continue to impose it on you and I and the ordinary person walking on the street. And that is why we are saying that we will not support this kind of policy. No, most especially when you have VAT, that not it is a tax that every single person who lives in this country cannot avoid. You know that.
It's a direct tax.
It's a direct tax. You cannot avoid it. It is not like Momo that you can decide to do Momo. And there are other ways people use to avoid the Momo tax. And they think that they are smart. They say,
what do you mean by Momo tax? You mean
I'm talking the e-levy tax. Okay. You understand? And so now they are increasing VAT, which is a direct tax to every single person in this country. This is not the time. We were expecting to see government trying. This is the time. And it's not about raising revenue. Let me tell you, I have worked with a freight forwarding company, and I have experience in that sector. My brother, it is not about increasing or introducing new taxes that will later generate more revenue. What is currently happening in the business community? It is as a result of people being unable to pay taxes, their import duties. So many of the people who used to import through either Tamahabo or KIA, do you know what they do? They take it to the neighboring countries like Togo, and then it is port free. They will go and clear the goods there, store it in Togo, and then be taking it bit by bit. Do you understand? That is why. And so sometimes when you introduce strict measures, it's just like bolt and nut. When you over tight it, if it is hardened, what do you think will happen to the nut or the bolt? It will break, and that's the kind of system. So it is not about it is not about introducing taxes. Soften the tax system. Let the people have a breathing space. People will willingly work because, of course, if I have the opportunity to do business and I get revenue, of course, I will work voluntarily to go and ensure that my tax obligations are being fulfilled. But if you introduce new taxes that I cannot breathe, I also need a space, just like the finance minister has borrowed to the extent that he cannot even turn. So he's now looking for space. That is why we are seeing all these things. And taxation is also like that. And so when you increase taxation with the reason that you want to generate more revenue, you are rather harming the people. You are not going to get the revenue. That was why the e-levy thing failed.
Well, Mr. Glover, Titus Glover, there are key issues about why we need to raise revenue and where we need to raise the revenue from. If you look at what the minority is saying, and there was a whole press conference that was headed by the minority leader, Haruna Idrisu, who said that there are certain tax handles, especially the direct one, that could impose more hardships on the ordinary Ghanaian. But as part of the approval processes, of course, we're going to go into the sectorial appropriations. How do we undertake these conversations within Parliament so that the ordinary Ghanaian understands why there needs to be a certain buy-in? All of us need to be on board.
Roland, thank you so much, and good morning to my brother and to your viewers. I'm always excited to be part of a TV3 family when it's Wednesday. I feel so excited and to come and contribute to the discussions on your platform. And a good friend of mine, Apostle Richard, has extended his regards to you personally. He's watching us as we speak. As I listen to my colleague and saying that they are going to reject the 2.5 VAT tax, I was a bit alarmed. Technically, this budget is looking at three things. First of all, is about the debt sustainability. The second point is on revenue generation. And the third point is improving social services, i.e., this improvement in school feeding, free SHS, LEAP, and what have you. You also agree with me that when you look at the contribution of revenue in terms of percentages to GDP, it's about 13%. You try to draw his attention to it, that the revenue that we are generating
we
is
just
not
don't
enough.
generate enough.
And it's about 13% of our GDP. The rest is from other sources, loans, grants, and all that. But when you look at the sub-regional standards, ECOWAS, it's about 18%. It's very, very important. Now, with the situation we find ourselves in, that the bonds market internationally is not possible, it's not feasible for us to source money for these areas. It's important that we try to diversify, we try to open up and see what can we do to rake in this excess revenue so that we'll be able to do other projects within ourselves. We are told by the finance minister that 70% of domestic revenue goes into debt servicing. 70% of all this revenue that we generate domestically, it goes into debt servicing. And this debt servicing didn't start from the days of President Akufo-Addo's era. Way back, when you were talking, I was quiet. So please, with all due respect, allow me and let me flow and let me educate the public so that they will understand. And like I said, 70% of this tax revenue is going to tax, servicing of our debts. That comes to public sector compensations. Government sector workers, almost about 10, 12, 15%. When you add it to the 70%, it gives about 85%. Goods and services have not come, let alone capex. So clearly, you could see that we have a huge Herculean tax in our hands as to how we want to deal in running of these economies. That is why it's important that there's a need for us to have the support of our colleagues in minority. I agree that we are not in normal times. The challenges are dire, and for that matter, trying to get taxes from our people is a bit difficult. After all these foreign countries that will go to solicit funding to come and support our budget, the monies are generated from their own people. So clearly, at some level, I try to understand what the minority is trying to say. But clearly, the situation we find ourselves in, it is very important, it is so essential, so that we'll be able to diversify and find out how do we rake in some of these revenue that are coming in. As I speak to you now, me and you, we are Tema boys. Last week when I came here, I told you that when you go into the, I heard him saying that you work with the freight forwarder. Yes. When you look at that cargo throughputs, in terms of the container throughputs, from July up to yesterday, it has dwindled drastically.
Now who costs them?
It's about importation. Do you understand?
Now,
so clearly there's a need for us to interrogate why these things are happening. Because the port is a cash cow. Majority of the domestic revenue are generated from the port. So if these revenues are not coming up, it's essential, it is so crucial for us to sit and find out why these revenue are not coming. So it's important that we try to look at few areas and find out what can we do to rake out this revenue. So clearly, I have seen my colleagues in the minority issuing threats that they will reject the VAT, blah, 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 blah. I want to appeal to them. Because at the end of the day, they are the same minority people who will be coming around the table to say that we need ABCD in their constituencies. Yesterday, he saying that we'll be taking too much loans. Yesterday, His Excellency the President has to commission the bridge over the rail on the Teman Pakadan Road. Right? He's in Parliament. You are in charge, you chair the government assurances by the minority. Every loan that is procured, that comes to Parliament, you scrutinize it. And it tells you exactly what these loans are going to be used for. This is an example. of what this loan is going to has been used for. And this is going to serve a very good purpose because we are opening up the eastern corridor of our country, where these transborder transport services, when these containers that are going to the Sahelan countries, we are able to send them to Mpakadai. You cross the Volta River all the way up north, will be able to generate revenue and pay for itself. So I want to appeal to my colleagues, particularly the minority. This is not a time to be trying to be boisterous or to demonstrate that, yes, we want to punish government, and for that matter, we not want to make things very easy for you.
But Mr. Titus Glover, there are key considerations and suggestions that have been made. And it's not as if it's only the minority that is saying this. Mm-hmm. There are huge expenditure patterns on government policies for which the expectation was that in this budget, at least there would have been a cut or a halt on some of those projects. Even up to now, and my colleagues and I, before we started this, we cited the National Cathedral project, for example, 400 million. I mean, that's in excess. You could as well put a hold on some of the so-called untouchable government social spending interventions or projects. And that, again, will reduce marginally the deficit that we have.
Rola, I do concede that there are some projects that can be really look again. Last week when we came,
and this should have been in the budget.
Last week when it came, you tried to push me so hard, and one or two folks spoke about the fantasy project and all that. You tried to find out on top of my what I think can be done about it. Yes, the National Cathedral that you made mention of is an area that the money that we'll have spent there, we could have deployed or divested that money into other areas that we think could serve another good purpose for us. But notwithstanding that, the demands of our people in this country continue to increase. And for that matter, we cannot say that if there's a provision of social services, i.e. water, in the certain areas, because the expansion and the development are moving towards that direction, government is going to say that, no, I cannot provide water. They are the same citizens or the residents who are going to complain and attack government that we've been here and we're not getting water. We're not getting our roads. We're not getting electricity. So all these essential services are very important that government need to provide. And in doing so, you use money to do it. Sitting here, I'm sure that the finance minister, and I'm happy they are going to look at the estimates. It is their duty, both sides of the house. All the sectoral ministers are coming to look at the nitty-gritty of every expenditure that they want to look at. At the end of the day, we want the goodness of this country, what they think is the best for us. So we'll look at it and move on. But to say that you want to shoot it down, at the end of the day, it is not about politics that we are doing. It's about how we can serve our people and serve them well. So for me, it's an appeal that I want to make to our colleagues, that the situation in which we are finding ourselves now, it is not a matter of trying to say that, yes, we want to shoot everything that government brings up. At the end of the day, the international market is closed. We can't go access to get external loans to fund our budget. Therefore, we should find means of novelty that we can raise domestic revenue to enable us to support our project that we want to do. But for example, look at this policy on these free SHS and stuff. And I'm happy that the president, looking at the results that we have had in free SHS, I think that
there had been concerns raised. Even the finance minister, when at the start of the implementation of the project,
yes, he has
that there could have even been co-sharing or cost sharing.
I have
based on some level of means testing.
It is important that people can raise concerns about the free SHS, i.e. the fact that there are some people who could afford. I have no problem there. Do you understand? So if there's any kind of inputs, any kind of review that need to be looked at, I have no problem. But investment in the free SHS, for me, is so important. Because look, today, somebody from his constituency in Gulu can have access to Tamale Senior High School or Tamale Secondary School. A poor farmer, peasant farmer's child. Somebody from Mama Sama can have access to my school in Preseklikon. That alone is a man. Hitherto, when you look at the quantum of children whose parents cannot afford to go to school, averagely a year is about 120,000. So
why don't you target those?
So of course, now the budget for the education...
So, for example, if you had a child going to school...
Speak?
What out of school? But your child would have been going to infant for free. Why?
Please. So now I heard the president saying that when he was at Opogowari Senior High School over the weekend, that the budget for the education has been increased from I think 2.2 billion to about 2.9 billion. Because when you look at the results that has come from free SHS, the senior high school results, comparatively from 2016 all the way down, it looks good. And for that matter, some investment need to be made. I agree that there are some challenges, there are some problems around the implementation of this policy. And for that matter, stakeholders are giving their good ideas as to what we think we can do to better up for this human capital development of our people.
Well, there's an issue that we need to take a look at. At the end of the day, there always is the blame that the minority would have a lot of the public comments made. For example, I have this one that says that Komla Kluche, a correspondent from Parliament, said the budget was passed almost looking like there was consensus, as if there were no issues raised on the part of the minority at all. And so on that part, when you come out in the public space or public domain and you come and make some of these arguments, you don't sort of help the debates in the first place.
So when he says budget was passed, I don't know which budget he's referring to. Is he referring to the 2022 budget?
What transpired in Parliament yesterday?
It wasn't, like I said, that wasn't a pass, but you cannot term that as an approved budget. Like, he is a former member of Parliament, and it is part of when a document like this is a policy document presented to Parliament, after debate, we must take a decision, either reject it as a document or approve it. And so yesterday we approved the document, the policy document presented. It is about the performance. When you look at it, it spoke about 2022 performance, the sectorial performance and all that, and then projection proposals. So the main budget, it is the estimate that we will now be looking at committee level. And so we only approve this document. It is a policy document we approve. We are now going into the real estimate.
Yeah, we do understand that.
And I am saying that is where the work is. We are going to look at it sector by sector, ministry by ministry. And do the scrutinies. And we have already sent a signal to majority group that the VAT, right, that is being proposed in this policy, it is the finance committee that will sit on it. Staff from Ministry of Finance would appear before the committee to convince them why they think that at this particular moment we need this particular tax. And we are saying that with the current economic hardship that we are experiencing as a country, we will not support any further tax. We will not. We are against it. We are not against the entire budget. We are against the particular tax. And any other subsequent thing we see when the estimates are brought before the committees, and we think that this is also supposed to be taken out, we will communicate and we will take our stand. And we are saying that the VAT increment, we are not going to support it. We will reject it. That is our stand. And so for people to say that, I saw other people saying that the minority only made noise that they will not support the budget. That is not. I just want to use your platform to let them know that we are not going to disappoint them.
Let's listen to the minority leader, especially at the end of wrapping up that debate at their approval process.
The budget we should have stood strong with Ghanaian people. They are praying that this budget fails, and they blame us and blame Ghanaians. Take your failing budget. You have failed Ghanaians. Be mindful of rising costs of living. You have exacerbated hardships and poverty, and accept responsibility for it.
At the end of the day, they'll look at the sectorial appropriations, but in its entirety, while there are concerns that could be raised by sections of the minority, the general public seem to have this consensus that the minority only comes to make the noise in the public domain. But at the end of the day, when they get onto the floor of the chamber, they just make sure everything goes through. But there are key issues that we also need to look at. we've had various unions as well as managers of various pension funds raising concerns about government recent decision on debt restructuring and the decision to make sure that we have debt sustainability levels that will be in consonance with the discussions we're having with the International Monetary Fund. Now, let's get to the Ghana Medical Association, Titus Bayo, and has been raising some concerns regarding pension funds accruals and how they could be used.
Health insurance companies and mutual schemes. These insurance companies have also invested heavily in government bonds. So if they are not exempted and all of them are zero rated and are following the same pattern, they are going to have liquidity challenges, which will mean that they will default on paying claims to hospitals. And that's where the trouble begins. You have seen what the challenges are with NHIS when they delay in payment of claims. So if the private insurance companies also delay, then hospitals are not able to pay for drugs, are not able to pay for consumables, are not able to pay for supplies. Then this is going to cascade into shortages of these very vital consumables that we need to deliver health services. And the shortage may be nationwide. It will mean that you may even have the money, you want to buy a particular drug out of pocket, but you will not get it because the people who import it are owed so much by the insurance companies that they will not be able to import the drug, or those who manufacture it may be owed so much that they cannot manufacture. If you cast your mind back, not too long ago, the Pharmaceutical Manufacturers and Importers Association of Ghana came up to threaten that they were not going to sell any of their product to us on insurance. Everything was going to be cash and carry. And this was because of the rate of inflation and the instability of the cedi against the dollar. They were losing out so much. That is something that is still being worked on. And now this comes in, which means that the insurance companies are going to default if no safety net is provided. And the long-term effect is what we are seeing, and we are talking about that government should look at it. When they met the regulators of various financial sector agencies, we are not even aware if the NHIA, which is the regulator of these private health insurance companies, were part of that meeting, and what type of safety nets they designed to protect this unique group so that healthcare delivery is not hampered. So it will start with those who are having the card. And if they default in paying the hospitals, when you show up there, the hospital will say pay cash. But that will be for you who is a card holder. But to the general people who are not even members of that insurance scheme, if this default goes on for long, then the hospitals are not going to meet up their obligations. If that happens, what is going to happen is that then drug supplies, consumable supplies will be a challenge. And this is going to affect almost everybody, not even those who carry only private insurance card or the national health insurance cards.
Now, to the point that we've even had Isaac Adongo, member of the Finance Committee of Parliament, raising key issues about how the lack of engagement of institutional bondholders on these holdouts could ultimately lead to some level of class action against government, especially with the way the funds will be managed in this debt restructuring strategy that has been announced by government.
But I enjoy watching Ghana Tonight a lot. I have to watch it before I go to sleep. And for the previous weeks, the signal doesn't look good. And why do I say this?
It's because the government has failed.
I'm coming. When you look at the statement made by the finance minister that he has engaged fund managers, Security and Exchange Commission, Pension Regulatory Authority, bank, financial institutions, insurance institutions, and all that. And you miss the opportunity to engage the trade unions. There's going to be a problem. Because the trade unions' funds are being managed by some of these fund managers, their pension funds, and all that. The first union officer to make that threat was the General Secretary for CROSAC, my good friend
Isaac Bampo.
He gave the first statement that they are not comfortable and they don't want the pension funds of workers to be touched. Then, subsequently, I had my former lecturer, the Secretary General of the TUC, Dr.
Secretary General of the TUC.
Secretary General, my former lecturer, Labor Economics, Tony, also make some statement. Then came the president of the Ghana Resident Nurses Association of Ghana, and all of that. So the question I ask myself is, these are major players when it comes to this discussion that we're having. I want to appeal, seriously. Yesterday I said in another platform, the fact that the finance ministry has not engaged the unions, it is not a good sign for us. It is important that so long as they are part of this scheme, of this program that the government want to engage, you must be able, just like you met
and it's causing chaos.
You know, the IMF are in town and they are watching, they are listening to all these things that these.
You agree that it's causing chaos within the
I don't want to use the word chaos.
Then what is it doing?
It's a way of discomfort. You know, it doesn't make the flow. It doesn't make the dialogue. You know, in negotiations, the triangular, the employer, the government, and the unions is always important. In this exercise that government want to do, because of the challenges we have in our hands, you cannot take away the trade unions. I'm one of them. I'm one of the trade unions. I'm also part of government. So I want a situation where, together, all of us, it is important they should have been the first people to engage. For me, when you ask my opinion.
So now we have NAT.
You know, so
we have the generality of the TUC, the Ghana Registered
Nurses Association, the CLOSA.
They're all up and up. They are worried about.
So it is still not late, Roland. It is still not late. I want to implore to the finance ministry and their team to engage the unions. They should open up. They should open up, because in negotiation, in the spirit of negotiations, you should be open to open up your books for your negotiating party to know the situation in which you find yourselves. But when you keep them at bay, you don't make them know what is going on, and you want to use other means, it is not going to be successful. And I like the opinion yesterday watching my brother Alfred, the opinion of the Attorney General. You know, there's a need for us not to go by the coercive way. You understand? Let's engage, let's dialogue. And I believe the unions will understand. A lot of friends have called me. The EcoBank EDC. Do you understand? EcoBank EDC investment. People, the finance minister was saying that individuals are not going to suffer. There's not going to be any.
But that's not true.
But when you go deep down,
are you also getting that line?
My own spouse, he has some small investment in EDC. Yesterday she came over, she was telling me, hey, Imbra, my wife was telling me that, look, what we are being told and what is happening with the EDC, it is totally different. So I'm sure something needs to be done. We need to look at it again and explain and make sure that, because, for example, if I take my money to the bank and I want to invest, and I know you are giving this investment at this interest rate, and for that matter, for the situation in which we find ourselves now, it's going to be affected. We need to look at it again and make sure that arrangement is properly communicated. Other than that, like what Adongo is saying, because when you say individuals are not going to suffer, it is individuals who have contributed into a scheme to make it a cluster. Do you understand? Yeah. It is individuals who, through TV3 fund managers, have bought into to invest in that fund. So it is the individuals that have made TV3, that fund managers and institution to invest in that government bond. So when you say individuals they are not going to suffer, but those classes will need to come again. But again, government also made some suggestion that they've created a fund that any of these fund managers who should suffer or have opportunity to face some challenges in servicing,
they will create.
No, they from the way that what I read, they have created a fund to support from the World Bank. I heard the finance minister that they've created a fund that if they have a problem in paying some of these funds for their beneficiaries. They are there to support them to make sure. So I don't see any serious challenge.
We'll get to Isaac Anogo very soon. But Mr. Sukparu, have you cited the opinion of the Attorney General?
Well, on my way coming to the studio this morning, that I was just listening to a sister station.
But you have not cited the opinion. Let me just apprise you of what. And his opinion says that in the absence of agreement by the parties, it will be unlawful for the government to unilaterally introduce CACs into bond agreements and may constitute an event of default under Clause 12 of the Terms and Conditions of bonds issued under the program. Now, he continued by saying that the indirect approach of the enactment of an act of parliament or legislation prescribing a collective action mechanism in relation to is plausible. So even the Attorney General is worried there could be some level of legal actions by institutional bondholders.
Exactly. And I agree with him. I think yesterday...
You agree with who?
Yes, you know, yesterday, as part of our leader's presentation when he was debating, he said it because the finance minister, excuse my language, the decision taken by the finance minister shouldn't be a unilateral decision because he's not, Parliament is there to represent the people of this country. We are members of Parliament, we are representing the people of this country. And so we are of the view that at least if a decision like this, as part of, finance ministry consultations, Parliament, they should have drew Parliament attention to some of these things. But what did we only saw him addressing the nation, coming out with some of the, policies that this is what government intend doing as far as that restructuring is concerned. And these are many reasons why we, minority, said that this finance minister has caused a lot of troubles for this country. Even when we are in a position of trying to find solutions, he is creating more problems. Just like my brother said, many of these stakeholders are complaining about lack of consultation. They are not aware of this thing. They were supposed to at least be consulted. I'm talking about the fund or the bond holders. They should have consulted them. They didn't do that. They didn't come to Parliament. All these loans, floating of these bonds and all of these things, it is government that provides oversight responsibility of these things. You sat in your office, took a decision like this. You didn't consult any stakeholder. Even when your Attorney General wrote to you, you decided to disregard it.
Attorney General wrote a legal opinion.
Of course, but if I think per what did the finance minister write to Attorney General asking him for his illegal opinion? So what was the reason of writing to the Attorney General? Because finance minister is not a legal person, and the Attorney General is the legal department for executive, right? It provides legal advisor. Yes, chief legal advisor to the executive. And so you ask your chief legal advisor, what is his opinion? He has provided his opinion as the chief legal advisor to you, that this is my opinion. You decided to ignore it and do the other way. That is why I am saying that this man is just in to create problem for us. Even as we are here this morning, as a country, this is the time we are looking for a solution for our own problems created by the finance minister. In our quest to find solutions to the problems created by him, he is still creating problems. Don't you think that somebody with this can take a legal action against Ghana's government?
Well, it's when we have to go for a break. When we come back, we will look at whether there could be some legal implications on the actions being taken by government, led by the Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, especially by institutional bondholders in relation to these holdouts, as far as this is related. We're taking a break, we'll right.
On the 18th of November 2022, the Chief Legal Officer of the country, the Attorney General, issued an opinion declaring that transaction as illegal. Ladies and gentlemen, when you issue a bond, it's an agreement. You advertise a prospectus which becomes the agreement, and you are bound by those agreements to respect them. You cannot unilaterally sit in your office, shred those agreements, and illegally and arrogantly compel people to accept what you want. We are all aware that since yesterday, our financial sector has become inundated by customers calling in and some actually rushing there, thinking that something untoward was happening to their money. Today, I want to appeal to all bondholders and investors to exercise caution and spare our financial sector from any further pressure. But I want to announce today that it is quite clear from the Attorney General that this was not the action of government. It is the action of Ken Oforiatta and not the government. It is not possible for Cabinet to approve a transaction that the Chief Legal Officer, the Attorney General, says is illegal. So Ken is on his own. We are ready with my team to support any group of investors and bondholders who agree to come together for a class action to sue the Minister for Finance and to sue the government to reverse this decision. We are also exploring the opportunities that are available to ensure that investors are able to support government in an exchange program that meets the requirements of investors and government, so that government is able to achieve the twin objectives of preserving people's investment and our economy, whilst at the same time meeting the criteria for the IMF program.
Daniel Ni Kwate Titus. Why is your government doing this?
Can you bring me to issue the point 1 of the...
Let's go to the slides.
The slides.
The slides.
Number 1 or so.
The slides on the AG.
AG, yeah.
Yes, the AG slides. So
yeah.
we'll get the AG slides.
Yeah.
So while we work on the AG slides, so you want to take a look at it? I see that when you were watching this, it got you worried.
Yes, I'm worried because last night when I was watching Alfred show, Ghana Tonight, he tried to...
So you've seen it, so you can...
He said what? In the absence of agreement by parties, it will be unlawful for the government to unilaterally modify the terms of agreement with bondholders. The emphasis is unilaterally.
And he has done that.
Unilaterally. So clearly that is where Adongo is coming from. And for the Attorney General to make this opinion speaks volumes. Before this engagement was done, I believe that the Attorney General's opinion should have been sought first, so that we can look at some of these things.
Because this opinion is dated November 18th.
November 18th, before he made announcement of this
So he did.
The program. So he has done it.
But he ignored it.
You know, so clearly this is giving a signal that if we are not careful, some individuals or some clusters within a fund can take action against that. And that is why dialogue is important. When my brother was speaking, he said that the finance minister did not consult. In fact, he did, but it was not thorough. He has engaged the Securities and Exchange Commission, some fund managers, the Pensions Regulatory Authority. Unfortunately, the trade unions have not been engaged. That is why I'm saying that it is not thorough. So he still has a window, some opportunity that he can go and engage the trade unions. In this situation in which we find ourselves, we want a situation where government can defer some, what do you call it, payment that need to be made on some bonds that are matured. Do you understand? He wants a space in which we'll be able to have some opportunity that we'll be able to use the money to develop. You get what I mean? That is why he's trying to defer the maturity of these payments as and when they are due. That is all that he wants to look at. So clearly, let's give the finance minister and his ministry some benefit of the doubt. We need to consult more. We need to engage deeper so that we'll be able to arrive at a consensus that everybody will be happy. Because the situation we find ourselves now is not pleasant for everybody. It's not pleasant for the country. It's not pleasant for the government, including our own people. So clearly, I will pray that the statement made by the Attorney General is studied carefully and should not lead to any class legal action against government from what is going. And Adongo said something that it is Ken Ofori-Attah's personal action that he has taken. I don't know where he has that source of information from. That's why he's a member of cabinet. Do you understand? So clearly he cannot make that statement. He cannot make the argument that it's Ken Ofori-Attah.
But how differently can you interpret that? On November 18, November 18 dated opinion of the Attorney General states prior, and it's almost 3 weeks into that announcement, you decide to go ahead and make a big decision like this.
It is.
How else can you interpret that?
It is very difficult. First of all, I am happy that he did consult the Attorney General to look at his legal opinion about the whole exercise that is going to be done. And professionally, the Attorney General has also given his opinion as to what should be done. You know, if we are not careful, we can run into problems. And that is why it is crucial and essential that we continue to engage and find out how we can address some of these problems that is hitting us on our face. You get what I mean? So clearly, I still think that there is an opportunity that we can address. Because at the end of the day, the finance minister did mention that there's a fund that has been created. So if some maturity is due, and fund managers may have challenges in making payment, they have made some funds available to support. So for me, that is the cure that I've seen in this arrangement that the finance.
It doesn't look good.
So to speak. But I think dialogue will cure some of these.
You're good at dialogue,
problems.
so you're saying so to speak.
Of course, that is the best way we have to go.
No.
Where it is now, you cannot flex
the
a muscle.
finance minister has been very flagrantly
You cannot
abusing the law.
flex muscles here.
Hasn't
All
he?
you need is cool heads. All you need is to make sure you engage more and to see what you could do to go around it.
And you represent many constituents in Sisala West.
Yes.
That also means that these have big implications if such decisions are taken by big institutional bondholders.
Exactly. So, Roland, listening to my brother, I like the way he's trying to, to defend. Struggling to defend Ken Ofori-Attah's decision to ignore the Attorney General's advice, legal advice to him. You know that this Ken Ofori-Attah has been found of abusing our laws. This is not the only time. And so I am happy that today the censor, the committee's report will be brought to the plenary. And these and many reasons are part of, the reason why our side think that it is time for him to go. Even, like I was saying, even when that we are looking for solution, he is continuing abusing the office. How can you allow, how can you sit down, you wrote to your chief legal advisor to advise you on something that you want to engage. He has responded to you, provided this beautiful advice to you, and you decide that because you are the cousin to the president, you are untouchable, you can choose to go as and when you want, nobody can fire you. As far as this government is concerned, you solely decided to disregard all stakeholders and go ahead to do this. And that is why I want to use your platform this morning to call on our brothers, a majority group, to support the minority censor this morning.
Why should they?
Why should they? Because
they've already declared their decision.
Declare
Are you
with
not
decision.
in Parliament?
And you've declared your decision.
You haven't listened to Andy Akiakubi, the member of Parliament.
What did he say?
Oh, that they are in no way in support of the pointers that had been raised in relation to the vote of censure. And that motion that also, and we know what
that's the hypocrisy part of it. I just don't understand.
How is that hypocritical?
It's hypocritical. You first on 25th,
how is that hypocritical?
25th November, 25th October, you organize a press conference to call on president to fire the finance minister. He is responsible for the hardship in this country. We came out on 26th, filed a motion that support our motion.
Pointers. That actions undertaken by the finance minister were unconstitutional. According to the majority side.
And there are several.
The reasons why they want the finance minister gone.
Granted, I'm coming. Granted, our points are unconstitutional.
Are not coterminous
what you have just read, you have just read on your screen, is it written by minority? The legal advice. Is it written by minority?
But they are not the same things.
Is this not a clear example to you that what we suggested or what the point that we raised in our censor, that he's fond of doing things like this because he thinks he's untouchable, nobody can sack him. Therefore, when he sleeps and wakes up and he decides to do ABCD, he goes ahead to do it. He doesn't care. With no respect to our laws. This is an advice from an appointee appointed by his own cousin.
But there's no action.
The chief attorney.
There's no action undertaken by the finance minister regarding how we are able to manage our domestic debts within this exchange program. That is unconstitutional.
Roland, you just mentioned here that there are several stakeholders, including the trade unions, complaining that they were not consulted and all of that.
Right.
He only chose to consult his appointees. You know the Exchange Commission, is it Alfred Ogbami? Was his, they were all together at Data Bank. And these are a group of people who are causing problems for our country.
You mean Daniel Ogbami?
So what is Daniel Ogbami? What is the difference between Daniel Ogbami and Ken Oforiatta? Tell me the difference. He brought him from Data Bank.
And so what?
That is his boss, his boy. He decided to put his boy. And so you don't expect Daniel Ogbami to come out. You
know Reverend Ogbami very well.
When you say look, no matter your position, Reverend or whatever, once the person that was his boss, was Ken not his boss, and he is still his boss. He's the finance minister. He's only the Exchange Commission's boss. Right. Is that not so?
Point well.
So it tells you the kind of person we have who is in charge of finances. And so I am saying that the majority group should support us this morning for us to get this man off from our finance ministry so that investors can have confidence in our economy, so that people of this country can get work to do. Businesses can go back because almost every sector is collapsed. Look, go to the financial institutions. Even banks.
What do you mean by almost every sector is collapsed? That's not true.
Of course, no, but that is the
government
reality.
owes 10 billion in excess to
contractors, and you know the most driven in every sector, it is the contractors. When contractors are not paid, how are they going to pay their workers? How are they going to pay the loans that they are owing in the financial institution? And so the financial institutions certainly will be struggling. Other businesses that depends on transactions, they cannot move. So every sector has come to a standstill. And so that is what I'm saying, that we have gotten to a time that we must all come together to ensure that the finance minister is gone forever so that we can have our peace. Look, how can you continue to be behaving this way? He manages our economy, he manages our finances as though he's still in Data Bank. How can you do that when an advice is being given to you by your chief advisor, legal advisor, you decide to ignore it, and you think all is well?
Please, let me hear your last submissions, and then we can call it a morning on these discussions.
I think that
just tell your people to support us to removing this money.
When you look at the grounds for the basis for the censure by the minority on the finance minister, when it happened, he appeared before the ad hoc committee. You could see how he managed to explain himself on all the issues that they raised. Because, for example, when he did mention, they describing that mismanaging the economy and all that, he came back to say them that, look, all the policy directions that he brings to Parliament, the figures in terms of revenue generation and expenditure, are approved by Parliament. So under no circumstance will he be accused or to say that it is the cause of the mismanagement of the economy and all that. Because at the end of the day, it is Parliament that supervises him. It is Parliament that ensure that whatever he's doing, he report back to Parliament, So he has explained himself. But I've heard majority, particularly Afenyo-Maki, saying that they will not follow the route of the minority in the seizure. They have their own way of handling this matter. I recall that on that date in October when they held the press conference and they were invited by His Excellency the President, they had some arrangement, some agreement. And the President said, look, he has heard them, allow him to read the budget, allow him to pass appropriation for me.
Negotiate with the IMF.
With the IMF, that is the third point.
Well,
So the point is that whatever the minority is doing, that is their prerogative. They have every right to do whatever they are doing, but the majority have stated that they will not be part of the censure that they want to. They also have the arrangement that they have, and they must listen to the president. At the end of the day, if the arrangement they have with the president has not followed, then they have how to go about it. So for me, I think that it is still a work in progress that need to be dealt with. But I think that I will appeal to the Minister for Finance. He must engage more. The fact that the labor unions are threatening, it's a recipe for disaster. There is still an opportunity and a window for him. He must call on all the unions, sit with them, and these individuals are not being affected, and the banks are doing a different thing, like this Yiddish stuff at EcoBank and all that. It is creating some sort of
difficulties. And you have had those personal experiences.
Because my personal one, my own spouse, she has suffered from that. And some few friends have also called me, look, when you have the opportunity, speak on the issue and let's see how we can address this issue. But the situation we find ourselves in is not the best. Therefore, we want a solution to it. And all these issues that are coming up, all those beneficiaries of these bonds, anytime it's going to mature, and according to the finance minister, there's a fund that has been created. So if they are having challenges in servicing these payments, the fund is there to assist them to deal with these problems we face on our hands.
Okay. Daniel Ni Kwate Titus Glover, former Member of Parliament for Tema East and also a former Deputy Transport Minister, helping us undertake some discussions this morning. Member of Parliament for Sisala West, Mohammed Adams Sukparu, also has Sukparu.
Yeah, it's not Sukparu.
Okay. Thank you for joining us this morning.
A nice name, yes.
Thank you for joining us this morning. We have a couple of messages. Prince Henry from Kofodia says Nana Akufo-Addo should put Ghana and Ghanaians first before his personal interest by sacking Ken Ofori-Atta. We also have this one from Wisdom, who also is an entrepreneur and freight forwarder based in Tema, says, Roland, my client bought Esla Ball, 550,000 Ghana cedis, and just yesterday he wanted to go and take some redemption, only to be told that he was going to lose in excess of over 200,000. And then also, this one also is coming from Eric in Kumasi, says, I'm just on my way from Data Bank and I'm losing 25% of my initial deposits. The mark-to-market value policy is the greatest scam by this government. It's where we have to go for a break. When we come back, we do have more right here on the show.
Water is life. Water gives life. Water moves through